Okay, folks, back on day 125 of Nofap. It's kind of a late recording. Um, some of those classic Saturdays where you end up sleeping in and trying to recover a lot of my energy from the week preceding. Um, Especially this week. Um, I mean, it's not like I didn't do a whole flurry of uploads when my dad was in the hospital, but most of the day's been kind of getting myself mentally calibrated and back in line, so to speak. Um, I use the expression tightening up, calibrating myself, that sort of deal. Um, and Essentially getting back on track, because I mean, if you think about in terms of physical manifestation of psychological dynamics going on. One thing is, with my room, for instance. Essentially, everything was just kind of in disarray and out of alignment. Just stuff thrown everywhere. I had a bunch of what you call it, laundry to do, and just trash everywhere. I just I kind of I'll do this thing. I get really focused in on work and the stuff that's going on there, but then addition this week was with my dad, and just sort of everything just kind of almost like dropping everything else. And so this day I had essentially sort of in the literal sense clean up my room, um use those disinfecting wipes, wiping things down, cleaning stuff up, because I had maybe coffee spills or you know just dust, dirt. I went and swept up the room. I um like I said, did most of my laundry. I think about half of it, because I got one load done. I had enough cash left to convert to or dollars to break down into quarters to essentially cover a load's worth of laundry. So I've got my one of my blankets back, dried up, washed, and dried, and a bunch of clean clothes. It's mostly dry. There's a little bit of moisture here and there, but I mean, I'm sure that'll probably air dry. Because of how minuscule it is. I was able to run the dryer for about an hour after I washed it, which the wash was about half an hour. So um, I got that done, which is something that I've been needing to do. Usually, I mean, in general, end of the week, it's okay, everything. It's kind of like entropy's been introduced into this system, and then I have to sort of uh, clear out that entropy. But this last week and a half was maybe actually more like 2 weeks was was I don't know, maybe double or triple or even more of that, just because this is with me being 450 miles away from the situation down south. Even then, it affected me that much. You kind of see it manifesting physically, and this is something that I learned, sort of principle, if you will, or an idea that I kind of learned a few years ago, back when I was having to take that how to get out probation class, because um, we got into learning styles, we got into things that I came to what made it easier for you to learn or to get work done or so. And for some of us, it's been okay, I gotta have everything organized around me. I got everything clean and organized, and then sort of that sort of sets your mind at ease and you're able to focus better. Other folks, they can have things in complete disarray, and somehow it works for them. So it's kind of like being a unitary learner versus a non-unitary learner, where it's okay, you got to focus on one task at a time, versus someone who can be multitasking. Which, I mean, I've heard folks, I think it's probably been Dark Magician, but others have said, if you're multitasking, it's not that you're really being effective. You're having to spread out your focus, your energy, your time onto multiple things, and you really can't. It's kind of like trying to make make something that is both, shampoo and conditioner. Yeah, they make them, but they're not really as, perhaps some might, say as effective as some that's purely a shampoo or purely a conditioner. They're trying to mix properties together, and there has to be some sort of compromise on either side. But most of the day's been spent just kind of getting back into a um, cool, calm, collected, focused, healthy state of mind, getting my room cleaned up and organized, and as a result, having that sort of effect on myself, sort of, feedback loop. But I don't know, some interesting things did happen early in the morning because I was, and it was like, didn't physically happen. It was more like I was sleeping and I had some dreams, and it was they were just really weird dreams. But it was like me being in the French Foreign Legion, and I completed my 5 year service and was like, you know, being discharged, honorably discharged, and like had my, I gotten European Union citizenship, and I was like leaving, and it was like I was having to cross this river, which I guess was like metaphorical for like the Atlantic Ocean perhaps, or maybe it was just crossing back into regular civilian life or something like that. And it was like it wasn't a bad dream. Um, it was almost like this dream about me fulfilling that desire for having some sort of military career, being part of some elite unit, having done something purposeful, that sort of deal. And I'm sure some of it has to do with the fact that I've kind of been watching a lot of that kind of content. That interview with Joel Struthers, I believe is his name, on Jocko Willink's podcast, and then latest one that I've been watching, kind of piecemeal. I finally finished watching it, but it's the one with Johnny Kim, the Navy SEAL, medical doctor, and now astronaut. And I kind of had held off on watching that for the longest time because I was like, it's gonna be one of those things where like, oh, I get inspired, but at the same time, you look at a guy who's, a few years older than me and go, oh man, like this guy is like done it all, and what have I done, so to speak. You get that sort of sense of things. Even though everyone's journey in life is different, but at the same time, I just don't want to start rationalizing and going, oh well, must be great, could do that, but blah blah blah. I don't want to be doing that kind of thing. So, um, but you know, been communicating back and forth with my dad. I did send him a link to that podcast. Apparently, he watched part of it. And I sent him this link to this video of this other astronaut, Ron Garan. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. But him flying in a T-38 trainer jet. Like over in somewhere probably in Florida or Texas. But and he liked that. But because I've kind of, it's almost like as of late, maybe the last year and a half, I've been going through all this sort of stuff, going like, okay, I did something that I thought was so impossible for the longest time. I not only graduated from college with my chemical engineering degree, but I got a job in the biotech industry, and I made, I made really good money, and I'm doing all this stuff. So like, you start sort of thinking about old dreams or old aspirations you had, things that you may have messed up on, or maybe you just didn't even try. You weren't even like sure if you could do that, and going, okay, like if I can do this, well, what else can I do? And then trying to figure out, it's almost like trying to figure out how much you can get out of life, or what kind of story you can leave behind of your journey through life. Um, and so I've started thinking about the whole like military career thing again, possibly medical school, NASA astronaut. Just it's almost like okay, like literally like reaching for the stars and going, okay, so how far can I really go? Because I'm seeing that a lot of life is really, I mean, I don't want to use the word plastic because I'm thinking about it from material science or engineering perspective, where plastic is like, um, well, maybe plastic would be the way word to use, because I'm thinking like in terms of like elastic versus plastic deformation, but what I mean is it's a lot more malleable, I guess would be a better way of wording it, than I thought it was. At one point I thought in a lot of ways that it was sort of like, here's your destiny, it's all set in stone, you know, um, can't really do much about this, that, or the other. And perhaps at one point in my life, when I didn't really have as much control over my future or my fate or what I could do, and even in a given day, like even the point of like, okay, I want to go to sleep now, and I want to just, be sleeping throughout the night and then get up in the morning at a certain time. Like, I didn't even have control over that, because it was always like, well, um, if my mother decides to get drunk tonight and she trips over her own feet and, cracks her skull open, hitting the floor, like, well, I'm not sleeping tonight, or whatever the case may be, or, other things, that would happen. To be like, well, I'm not sleeping tonight because somebody decided to make this dumb decision, or they decided to, like, take it all their frustrations on another person, and that person ends up, in the hospital from hypertension, or, like this last week, my dad with a brain bleed, stuff like that. Like, it was like I didn't have any control over my environment or my life. Um, there was no question of me, like, even getting it in my mind wrapped around my finances and going, okay, I'm going to pay off my debts, I'm going to do this and that. It was like, just completely out of my control, or predominantly so. And I had to sort of focus on what I had control over, and then like try and change that. And eventually I was able to get to where I'm at right now. And there are times when you think about the opportunities you could have had back at this time or that time. Like, I could use the example of like cryptocurrency, and thinking about, oh, back when Bitcoin was, worth $300, a coin. And oh, if only I'd had that money back in 2010 or 2011, or however much it was worth. I think was it 300 or was it 30? It was a really, like, relatively small amount. And oh, if I'd bought 5 or 10 of those, um, and held on to it, no, how much would I have now, and things of that nature. I mean, it's not something I'm gonna really beat myself up about, but it's sort of a lesson learned that, this is why it really pays to not only be cognizant, but establish as much control of your life as you can. And again, like, this is why I'm at this point where I try and keep my distance from people who I feel like, would have a toxic influence on me. It's why I'm not really focused on politics, because I think that, concerning yourself with it is sort of a sign of, for a lot of people, of just not having any control of their lives, and they want someone to come in and save them. They want a hero, and they need to be the hero of their own life. And that's what I'm trying to do for my own self, first and foremost. Um, but I'm at this point as well, where I'm also sort of like looking into, like, learning about stuff that I would never have really thought to learn about before. Like this whole concept of building wealth, and how can you hedge against inflation, stuff that just would never have crossed my mind years ago, when I was obsessed about other things, like, like obsessing about girls, or, working on some, as it turned out, a dumb, project where, you know, it was some like joke company that I started that was never going to take off. And, trying to work with people who didn't really want to go that extra mile to make things work, didn't want to, do their fair share of the work. They wanted to sit there with some fancy title and pretend like they were, hot shots or whatever. But, yeah, a lot of things have changed. And, as far as Nofap is concerned, I'm glad I'm on day 125. And, looking to knock down more days. But, you know, I'm, uh, I'm using the remainder of this day just to get kind of set up, because, tomorrow, for one thing, I don't have to, I offered to come in on, sometime this weekend. My boss said, not today, but tomorrow at noon, because they have some stuff they really need to get done and get out there. It has to do with COVID, I believe. It's like, for testing, like, basically detecting stuff. And I guess I could say detecting whether or not someone has COVID. I think that's essentially what it is. Or like diagnostics, COVID diagnostics, and they need to turn out some more units. So they were asking around saying, okay, who's willing and able to come in, on the weekend. Just let us know, and then, we'll tell you which days to come in on. So I offered. I mean, stuff that I've done, I've been trained up on, and it means extra money. So, two pluses to motivate me to go in. But I've also been reading up on the theory behind a lot of stuff that I did at the previous job, which is really what the other company is looking at. Because, again, it's a research associate position. I already sent in my availability for an interview. I'm going to have to try to get things all set up so I can just dip out of the building at the right time. Um, I really, really, really hope, they pick one of the times when it's like, okay, like at 4:30 as opposed to 3:30, because, um, if it's one of those days where like they're loading me up with extra responsibilities at work, I'm gonna really find it hard to dip on out to my car to take a Zoom call, um, and not, basically be suspicious and get caught and that sort of thing. Because it's not really me running around doing anything um, illegal or bad or so, but it's sort of like, because I'm still at this job. I've only been here for a few months, and this is one of those rare opportunities where, be allow me to really make that next leap in, a job and my career. And, truth be told, like, this position, it's like I said, it's a research associate position, and it would allow me to get into that level of the field, or that group, that the research group, which um, it's kind of what I've been wanting to do. Um, Manufacturing can be all right if you're able to sort of click with the culture of manufacturing. And you can make a solid amount of money, especially if you're able to sort of handle the hours and not, be I guess you could say be keeling over from overexertion. But the only way up in manufacturing itself really is to get into management, to become like a supervisor or the manager. And it's kind of like for every, let's say, 50 or 100 people, there's like, a handful of those positions, depending on how large the company is. And so it's like, okay, you're not really going to grow. You might go from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that sort of thing. And your pay might increase, but it's like you're kind of stuck in, spinning your wheels in place. And I suppose for somebody who might not have an actual like degree educational background in the field, in a STEM field, like, maybe that's great for them. They can make a living, and that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. But if you got like my educational background, you're starting to do what I'm doing, which is okay, I'm pursuing I'm taking these classes, pursuing that path to a master's of science in biomedical engineering. It's really like it's not serving me to the extent that, let's say, a research position would be, or an automation position, or something along those lines. Because um, I'm really trying to get to the R&D, research and development, design side of things. Perhaps automation, process engineering, and I've been in the field long enough to sort of know that, okay, like, here's what's gonna get you ahead. And it's great that they saw my resume, they heard about my interest and knowledge and such and experience, and they're like, let's give this guy a shot, so to speak, at interviewing for the position. So I got like 5 or 6 tabs open up on my browser on my laptop, internet browser on my laptop. Just reading them like next generation sequencing, polymers chain reaction, what else? Mini prep, etc. And just kind of like reviewing a lot of that stuff because, while I did get some exposure in college, I wasn't like a microbiome major, or I didn't have, they don't have like a biotechnology program, I don't think, at my university. So, a lot of this stuff is sort of, stuff that I got exposed to when I was out in industry, and it's like, okay, now I know what they want, what they're looking for, what they're, working on, that sort of deal. Um, I wish we'd had more professors who, had sort of their finger on the pulse of industry, because then maybe they could have geared us more towards that sort of stuff, and, less of us would have to go and become technicians to gain the experience, gain the knowledge of what was going on. We could just go, okay, um, I'm going to contact company XYZ and try and get trained up on their robotic system, or, learn about this or that, Um, and it would have been a lot less time wasted, But, it's not entirely a waste, because I've learned about this stuff and I've gotten all this money to pay off all these debts. And, it sounds like, talking to my dad, that maybe seeing me make some serious progress in paying off my debts has sort of inspired a little bit of a change in, his perspective, and even like other people in the family, their perspective on that sort of stuff. Because he's really trying to look towards, getting his mortgage paid off in full ASAP, which would really be great, and it would, as far as I'm concerned, it would take a lot of weight off my shoulders in terms of like being concerned about that. I wouldn't have to worry about that and try to do some mental calculus on how I'm gonna like help out with that, and just not have to think about that. Um, but other things, other things in the family, I don't think they're gonna change. Still that I don't want to really spend a lot of time on, but from the sounds of it, my mom went back to drinking, which means it's kind of like a ticking time bomb until there's some other incident. Unless my dad finally, is like, I've had enough of this crap and we're not doing this, and here's some real consequences. Um, but I don't know. I mean, if it's gone on this long, I really don't know why is that sort of like, what is it, what is the Rubicon for him, in terms of like what would make him finally go, enough is enough, and here's some real consequences. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'll maintain communication with him. I think a lot of times he just kind of needs to be able to have me to talk to, because I'm sort of like, you know, maybe acting as a rock of stability, or sort of a voice of reason, if you will, and able to offer sort of an outside perspective, because, it's kind of like the reason why I got so mad at my mom when all that went down, because I was looking at the bigger picture, and, obviously, like, they may try and get me to apologize to her and to my sister and all that, on technicalities, because, that's more important to them than, really making the necessary changes, taking ownership, and like, just knocking things off. That, then they'll probably want to try and make it a sort of a deal of, okay, I'll do X if you do Y. It's like, no, this is not me. I already did what I had to do. I did my due diligence. I took care of things, and honestly, like, I've made it a point to pay off all these debts and to continue paying them off, and to handle my finances and whatnot, even down to, paying for a new set of license plates, because that's sort of that's part of my way of doing something for my dad. Okay, he doesn't have to go sit there and stress about how am I going to get, even like $23 so that, so that Esquisses can go, buy a new set of license plates, or what's going to happen if this, what's going to happen if that, or how can I, cough up $1,200 a month to make those minimum payments on Esquisses' student loans, or, um, his student loans plus his car loan, and, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've done that sort of stuff to basically, tell my dad, like, don't worry about me. I got this handled. Don't stress about me, sort of thing. So taking that stress out of the situation, so there's not that additional pressure. And obviously the other two don't really see it like that. They don't understand that, that, okay, like, so much of it, this is like, okay, if you got 4 or 5 people in a family, and it's kind of like you take this load, which is, this weight, which is this, this is what all the stuff you got to do, the work, the energy, all that you got to have, and you have to expend, like the energy you have to expend to do the work of having a functioning family. And you're supposed to, technically speaking, be able to divide it up, 4 or 5 ways, depending on how many people are there, so that everyone is, the expression goes, pulling their own weight. And I'm trying to pull my own weight here, and it's like I don't see them doing that. But I mean, hope springs eternal, and I would love to be proven wrong on this, because if I was proven wrong, my sister was able to somehow, I don't know, get those medical problems taken care of, or at least learn how to, like, hack it, so to speak. Like I've had to hack it with pain in my left hand, things of that nature. I think I got some pinched nerves. I had not really talked about my health problems on this channel, but stuff like pinched nerves, or I don't know, issues with some sort of um, perhaps chest pains or high blood pressure, back pain, knee pain, neck pain, tension headaches, perhaps issues with, like, I don't know, maybe a skin infection, or you know maybe stuff even worse than that. If she's able to, and prove me wrong, and that prove me wrong, and being able to get a lot of other stuff together in life. If my mom's able to prove me wrong in terms of the alcoholism, that she finally kicks that and kicks it for good, and she starts actually treating my dad with respect, or at least, some, or, and a lot of it has to do with my dad demanding that respect, and, expecting it, acting like a king to be treated like one, sort of thing. But, I want to be proven wrong and all that sort of stuff. Um, and, I'm always concerned making these videos, like, putting out some sort of intensely personal information, and, maybe I will have to, um, go back and either make private or delete some videos, but, for now I'm just talking about this sort of stuff, and, I feel like I'm kind of bouncing back today, so, one other thing I will mention, and it's something that, hit me over the last week. It's like, with my dad, that, and, now I'm able to kind of say without a lot of emotion, but, one of the things that really hit me, and it's like, realizing something that, see, with my dad, and, me growing up in this family that I'm, a part of, thinking back to childhood and adolescence, it's kind of like my dad was always like was always and is, and, in reality, he will always be like that first hero of mine. He's always been that guy who, he had the answers. He knew what he was doing. He's a smart guy, hardworking. He's always able to handle this and handle that and bounce back from this. Always able to bounce back from being zeroed out. Very much that kind of capable, competent guy. I mean, you read up in the Rational Mail or so, talking about stuff like that, and him being able to do that. And this seemed like, that time when he wouldn't be able to bounce back. And, it's sort of a problem where, you got the person in the family who's kind of like the bedrock of the family. And, you kind of think, oh, they'll always be there. They'll always be able to handle everything. They're strong. I don't gotta worry about that. Though, even before all of this went down, I mean, I'd started trying to make it a habit when I talked to my dad to go, how are you doing? What's your health like? Things of that nature. Trying to be cognizant of the fact that my dad is a human being. He's in his 60s. He's gone through all the stuff he's gone through. I mean, even back to his 20s when he survived genocide, literally. Like, he was almost one of the victims of that genocide. He was almost a statistic, and if he hadn't survived that, like, I literally wouldn't be here, And trying to appreciate, what he's gone through to get me to this point where, like, I get to grow up in a country like this, where I'm not having to deal with martial law, and you know, um, just, invading armies marching through the streets and, just, gunning people down left and right and pillaging and, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, it really seemed like I was going to lose him. And, some people might say, metaphorically speaking, oh, you kind of lost him because how much he was willing to commit to um, being sort of the shoulder to cry on, the protector and the provider for the other two to such an extreme extent beyond like what you would understand as being fair, being willing to just be all concerned about them and their needs and not care about himself, not take care of himself. Um, always making decisions with them being his mental point of origin. I mean, heck, in the next year and a half, maybe 2 years, assuming the worst doesn't happen, I've often thought to myself, like, wouldn't it be nice if I could go travel overseas to some of these countries that I want to go to where I have, lineage going back to, like Greece or Mongolia, and be able to go with my dad, But so much of the time, even just talking about it's been like, oh, well, what about your mom? What about your sister? And I'm just like, I have these thoughts in my mind of like, you know, you're gonna be damned if you do and damned if you don't, because they will mess things up even if you're here. So then kind of like it's almost like, and this is me looking at it from my angle. People will say, oh, you don't understand because you're not a husband or a father or whatever. And yeah, that is true. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, why deny yourself those chances to experience those things? Heck, even if we could just have all four of us go there and actually enjoy, something like that. But I'm sure my mom being my mom, she would probably ruin the trip. Um, yeah, but anyways, those are some of the thoughts I've had, and really hope that positive things do come down the pipeline, and that my dad changes to taking care of himself and really having himself as his mental point of origin, and he finally crosses that Rubicon to the point where he like won't tolerate anything anymore, and things will finally change with those two, because I really can't stand the thought of having to to lose him. Like I said, as my dad, he's like my first hero, my eternal hero, and all the stuff that he's done, and he's gone through, and things that he's overcome, and just knowing that my pops could go do that, it's been a lot of the source of inspiration for me to keep going myself, and I try and let him know that, whenever I talk with him, but yeah. Anyways, I've gone on for over half an hour. It's kind of strange when I actually have so much of this stuff to say. I got thoughts in my mind and stuff I want to share. Because, yeah, that's what I got to share. So, anyways, I guess I'll see you folks around. Thanks to anybody who chooses to watch any of my videos or follow me along on this path I'm on. So, yeah, that's it. See you folks around. Bye bye.